seconds and counting.
Hey, what's good, guys? Clutch Entertainment here, back in another video. And for today's video, we're talking about the Houston Texans. And the trade deadline is next week. It's going to be on Halloween, October 31st. And stuff is going to start ramping up pretty fast, especially once we start getting to the middle of the week. We may start seeing some of the trades, maybe not anything wild. Most of the trades, if there is anything kind of big, like a big splash from any team really, most of the time it is like the day before or the day of the trade deadline. So I wouldn't expect anything too major to happen probably until the 31st, maybe the 30th, maybe even after a game on Sunday, like after the noon slate or whatever. But for the Texans, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say news involving trades. There's been some accounts, not anybody like too reliable, just like little wannabe reporters / fantasy football people saying, oh, the Texans aren't expected to make any moves. They're not expected to be buyers or sellers. And then there's some people who say that they might be a buyer and maybe for one player, a couple players. Maybe it's just for a depth piece. Who knows? It's yet to be seen. But the point of this video is just to like talk about what I think our biggest need is, and if we could try to fill that in this trade deadline or by the trade deadline. And our biggest need for me, I still think it's personally a wide receiver one. Can you get that by the trade deadline? I don't think so. I don't think the Bengals would be open to trading, for example, T. Higgins before the deadline. I think they want to let that play through the season. It doesn't seem like the Cardinals are going to entertain any Marquise Brown trade, so that's probably out the question. CD Lamb, there was some rumors or something like that a couple weeks ago how the Cowboys may not look to extend him long term, but I think that's going to change. I don't think they'd be interested in moving him either, especially when they're going to want to be deep in the playoff race. So I don't see any of the big-time receivers, big-name receivers, or potential wide receiver number ones becoming available by the trade deadline. The only receiver maybe is like a Jerry Jeudy, but do we really want a Jerry Jeudy in Houston? Personally, I don't. I don't see the real value in trading for a Jerry Jeudy when he could probably just draft one in the first or second round next year and probably get the same production, if not even better, probably way better to this point. So Jerry Jeudy, I would be a big no on. And then my second biggest need, I think, for the Houston Texans is adding defensive linemen. And when I say defensive lineman, I don't just mean a defensive tackle. I don't just mean a defensive end. It could be either one of them. The way our defense is played, Will Anderson can play inside at times. Grenard can play inside at times. So, like, our defensive line, I don't want to say it's interchangeable with who plays where, but our scheme, our wide nine scheme, it's more friendly to defensive ends, to more edges. I feel like edges are able to play inside more especially on pass rushing situations. We see Will Anderson line up, I don't want to say in the D tackle spot, but I mean, that is kind of where the D tackle lines up. And Will Anderson, oftentimes in pass rushing situations, he lines up there, maybe does a stunt to the outside, just bull rush inside. But the way our defensive line is ran, you could be a defensive end and be a defense or play up the middle at times. And I think the most important, yes, we definitely do lack a defensive tackle. We definitely do lack like a big-bodied, pass rusher, game wrecker, game havocer up the middle. Like we do lack for example, like a Quinnen Williams. We lack a Jalen Carter. We lack a we lack a Vita Vea. We lack like those type of players. And I don't think any of those, I don't think we can find that specific position by the trade deadline. It would probably be in the draft. There's a lot of big names in the draft in the first round and second round, so maybe we try to fill that hole there. But as far as defensive linemen, Chase Young, he could potentially be a target for us. We made a Chase Young video, or not a Chase Young video, but we made a trade targets video last week, and I listed and talked about Chase Young in that one. And some of the comments were saying how they'd be against it, or they'd rather wait until free agency. And I understand. I'd probably wait until free agency too. If the cost is giving up a second, like if you could just wait for free agency and just pay him there, rather than get him now and give up a second, then yes, I definitely wait free agency. But if you could get him maybe for like a fourth, a third, to ensure that you for sure get him, because come free agency, I mean, it's anybody's game in free agency. I mean, anybody could offer him a contract, anybody can strike a deal with him. It wouldn't be a for sure thing that we would get him. And there has been I don't want to say rumors, but the 33rd team, they're an account on Twitter. They have a website. It's kind of like PFF in a way, where they write articles, have little different reports, talk fantasy and whatnot. And they've been kind of heavy on the Houston and Chase Young thing for quite some time now, pretty much since last draft. Up until last draft, there was some rumors that we could potentially make a move for Chase Young. I think it was before we drafted Will Anderson. It may have been after Will Anderson too. I'm not sure. But I know that I have been heavily persistent on Chase Young to Houston. And I think it does make sense. Because come the offseason, I think we're going to have to pay Grenard. And Grenard may want a big bag. And I'm not sure if I'd be willing to pay him a big bag like he wants. I would pay him maybe like 12, 13 million. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to ask for. I feel like he's probably going to want to ask for like 16, 17 million, especially if he can get to 10 or more sacks, which for me is not worth it for him. He's been a great player for us this year. His pass rush win rate, his tackles, his presence, it's just overall, I guess, his overall game this season has been pretty good. And I think he would be worth paying, but I'm just not sure if I'd want to pay him the big bucks, like a 17 million, 18 million. And I'm not sure if he's going to request that. I think he would be understanding with the Texans. I think he'd be understanding with Nick Caserio, like, hey, you haven't been that healthy. Yes, you have had a 10-sack season in Houston a couple of years ago, but you haven't been healthy. And I think that's going to be a big discussion. Maybe it's a heavily incentive-based contract, like if you play a certain amount of games, if you're healthy for a certain amount of time, if you get a certain amount of sacks or whatever, then you get this amount of bonuses in your contract. Like maybe it's like a base $11-12 million contract with like so many different millions in bonuses, so something like that. But if that's not the case, then I think Chase Young definitely does make a lot of sense. I agree with a lot of people that left comments that it would be smarter to wait until free agency, but my only thing on that is, would it be a for sure thing that we get him? I'm not sure. I think if it was like a third or a fourth round pick to ensure we get him right now, I would do it, because at the end of the day, he's still a very young, promising pass rusher. I think on the season so far, I think he has like 5 or 6 sacks. He's been having a phenomenal season there in Washington with Montez Sweat. And then, of course, their defensive line is stacked. So for him to be getting stats, for him to be putting up numbers and pressures and all of that, with that stacked of a defensive line, I think it says something. Come over here, you got Will Anderson, you would have Chase Young, you'd probably have either a first or second round defensive tackle, a rookie up the middle. So our defensive line will be pretty set for the future. And as far as other guys for the trade, it's not like a trade target video. We just made one. But biggest needs, I think, is probably another defensive back. As far as who, I'm not really sure. I know the Eagles are looking at a lot of guys. For me, I was really heavy on Jeremy Chin, but he is in a contract year. He is out for like the next 5 or 6 weeks, so I'm not sure I'd make that type of move. I know Jacob, part of Clutch City Entertainment, as well with us, makes videos and tweets. He tweeted about some cornerback. I forgot who it was. It was a young cornerback that could become available. I think it was a slot guy. It may have been a guy from Detroit. I think... I'm blanking on his name, I don't know. But there is a couple of young DBs that may become available. Oh, I think it's from Chicago. I think our other biggest need, probably like a third biggest need, is a defensive back, because we do kind of lack that. Outside of Steven Nelson, Shaquille Griffin, Tavir Thomas, he should be coming back. I would hope he's going to be playing this week against the Carolina Panthers. That's yet to be seen. I would hope he does, but let's see what happens. Our injuries have been pretty wild. Derek Stingley, who knows when he's going to come back. Apparently, Aaron Wilson, I'm not sure where he said this. I just read a comment by someone. He was saying that Aaron Wilson said that Stingley may not even be coming back to like week 10. Maybe like around the time that we play the Bengals. Maybe he'd be active for that game. Maybe he won't. But that's around the time that we will be expecting him to at least return to practice. Maybe even play. But the point is that he's probably not going to be healthy for a few weeks. So I think another cornerback, maybe a safety, would be much needed, especially with, who is it? MJ Stewart, I think. He did something to his knee. I think it was meniscus or something. So he's probably going to be out for the year, or at least up until like the end of the year. So maybe another safety. Big name, I don't think any big name guys. I think just another dev guy. Maybe like a guy you could get for like a 5th, a 6th. Maybe even like a free agent. Maybe there's a young free agent that just gets cut around the deadline because another team made a move. Maybe it's something like that. We could try to find something like around there, but I'm not really sure. But my top 3 biggest needs in order our number one wide receiver, which I don't think we can find by the trade deadline. It's going to be either the draft or free agency. My number two, is a defensive lineman. It could be a defensive tackle, defensive end. I don't really care. Just get another defensive lineman in the building, especially with our scheme. Again, as I said, it's very interchangeable. Yes, we definitely do need defensive tackles, but I think an edge, especially on pass rushing situations and depending on what we do with Jonathan Grenard, I think another edge, big-time edge is needed with Jerry Hughes up in age, so yeah. And then third is a defensive back. I think we just need another body out there. Could be young, could be old. Just get another body because I think we kind of lack talent. Or not lack talent, but we just lack bodies there. But yeah, let me know what y'all guys think. It's been Clutch Entertainment, and hope you guys have a good day. Peace.